So, today I'd like to showcase a battle between myself and a good friend of mine in a battle league called the PBA, or the Pure Battle Association. And the reason I want to put this on YouTube is because, one, it's going to be a really good battle because it's between two of the top teams in the league, and two, it might give you some new perspectives on some Pokemon like Zeraora or even Munchlax in Draft League format. So without further ado, we'll go ahead and get into the two teams, and then I'll let you know what I brought really quickly before we get on into the battle. So if you look at the teams that are on the screen, you'll notice there are a ton of big threats on both sides. Some notable ones on the left, which is my team, would be Mega Salamence, Zeraora, who I've never even seen in Draft League before, and then of course the Munchlax in D tier, because that's always a threat. And then on Jay's team, we have Mega Blaziken, we have Kyurem Black, Tapu Koko, which for some reason he decided shouldn't have the Z move, Celesteela, Necrozma, Alolan Muck, Greninja Torrent, and then some bulkier mons to round out the team in Donphan, Vaporeon, Shaman, Slurpuff, and then this document has actually been changed, but he did have Alolan Raichu for our battle. So the team I built against Jay, I didn't feel like I had the best matchup, so I decided to try to use sets that would catch him off guard, more so than sets that would just outright beat him or maybe the best for the situation. And the first mon I decided to bring to try to do so was a Choice Scarf Zeraora, and for those of you who don't know, it already has one of the highest speed stats in the game at 143. So by giving it 224 EVs and then not even needing to give it a speed boosting nature, it already outspeeds everything on its team that's scarfed all the way up to Greninja Torrent. So the only way he could ever outspeed me is if he had a Jolly Max Speed Tapu Koko, or if he had a Mega Blaziken with 2 or more speed boost. So Volt Switch and Plasma Fist give coverage for most of his team. His Donphan can soak up the electric hits, and I didn't really put a move on this Pokemon that could hit the Donphan, but I thought it was still reasonable coverage for the rest of his team, and I would probably double as long as his Donphan was alive. So that was pretty much the idea behind that, was to try to catch his Blaziken off guard. Plasma Fist does a ton of damage to his entire team, barring the resist, so I thought it would be one of the better Pokemon. The second one I decided to bring was a Cresselia that was mainly HP and speed invested. The speed was so I could set up subs before he could Toxic me. Substitute was also there, so his Alolan Muck wasn't as free to Pursuit Trap me if it decided to switch in on me. And that's also why I had Moonblast over Psychic, so I could actually do something to the Alolan Muck. Thunder Wave was there to try to catch the Mega Blaziken with a Speed Drop, or the Kyurem Black, or any of his faster mons, and even some of the slower ones like Necrozma that might cripple it later in the game if I were to get a lucky para. The next mon I brought was, of course, Mega Salamence. You can't really do too much alteration with Megamince's sets. Usually it's Dragon Dance and 2 coverage moves, and either Roost or a 3rd coverage move. So for this battle, I thought Fire Fang would be pretty strong to hit the Celesteela. I had Earthquake for things like Mega Blaziken, and then I had Return for just general coverage. Not a whole lot else to switch into this. This was my main means of setup in this match, other than the Munchlax. So it was important for me to keep it around, but I was going to try to cycle it for Intimidate as much as I could, and not Mega until I absolutely needed to. This Tyranitar I built, it was actually a very strange set. I had EVs in almost everything, because I needed it to both live hits and deal a lot of damage. A lot of the attack investment I had was to just make sure it guaranteed some rolls on bulkier Necrozmas, that it could do a lot of damage to Tapu Kokos and Mega Blazikens, and that it could reliably break subs on some of the very bulky Pokemon on his team. Thunder Wave was still there for things like Blaziken switching in if I really expected him to be really aggressive with his Pokemon. And then Stealth Rock was just there because chip damage on things like Tapu Koko's Volt Switch and Kyurem Black switching in is always appreciated. This Scizor was mainly made to be a bulky pivot. I wanted it to take some hits, but I also put a lot of speed on it just to keep myself ahead of its slower mons like the Vaporeon and the Donphan. That way I could get U-turns off and pivot into things in case he decided to switch, or so that I would get a safer switch and bring something in that could take the hit better than Zeraora could. The moves here are pretty general. Bullet Punch does more damage to the Chiron Black with the metal coat, and then just U-turn, knock off Defog. It's a pretty straightforward set. I had Defog on there just in case he decided to bring something like Sticky Web Slurpuff. And then the last mon I brought was the absolute powerhouse that is Munchlax. And Munchlax, in draft or otherwise, can usually only do one thing, and that's a curse set with Eviolite and Thick Fat. And for this matchup, I decided to go Fire Punch and Earthquake. And these exact EVs are so I could actually beat a Celesteela even if it had a Leech Seed on me. I didn't invest anything in HP, that way it gets the least back from Leech Seed possible. I can set up Cursed, Rest, and then after so many curses, Fire Punch is always a 2-hit KO. And from there, the coverage hits the entirety of his team for at least neutral. So without further ado, we'll go ahead in the battle and see what he decided to bring. Alright, so looking at team preview, I was so relieved to see that he didn't bring the Chiron Black, because it would have done a ton of damage to the majority of my team other than Zeraora and Munchlax. Apart from that, I didn't really expect Shaman because he's only brought it to one game, and I didn't really know if he would bring Slurpuff and Alolan Raichu because I don't know that they had the best matchups, although they would have been annoying. So the team he brought is kind of what I expected. And looking at it, I wanted to go ahead and get Stealth Rocks up as soon as I could because a lot of my rolls depended on chip damage on mons like the Blaziken and on the Tapu Koko that might be important by the end of the game. So I thought it would be best to go ahead and lead with the Boulder, my Tyranitar. And he decided to lead with Donphan, and I wanted to keep some health in my Tyranitar because it would be useful for mons like the Muck. So I went ahead and switched, got the Intimidate off, and he did decide to Earthquake instead of setting up Rocks turn 1. So, scouting for the Ice Shard, I decided to go ahead and make a double switch into Zeraora. I thought it was a fairly safe play. If he had Stone Edged, it might have been bad, but otherwise it was pretty much no drawback since he was intimidated. And he does have the Ice Shard. And then he decides to switch as I go for Knockoff. Knockoff was a fairly free play there, just to get rid of something out of him. And I'll always take getting rid of a Vaporeon's leftovers in turn 3 of a match. That's amazing. So I went ahead and U-turn, got some more damage on it, and went into my Zeraora. And like I said in the team builder, anytime the Donphan is alive, I'm just going to double switch out Zeraora. It exerts a lot of pressure, and I know that Donphan will come in and try to absorb the Volt Switch. So I went back into my Scizor, decided to try to get another knockoff off, and we see that his Donphan's Assault Vest, so we know it's carrying 4 moves. He goes for Gunk Shot, and he may have been predicting something like my Mints. So I decided to go ahead and U-turn out after this. Went into my Cresselia. It was pretty free to avoid the Earthquake with Levitate. So far, I'm doing really well on these reads. I'm going to go ahead and pause here. So for a few turns now, I've just been reading Jay and kind of trying to see what moves he was going to make. We already know at least 3 of the moves on his Donphan, and we have his Vaporeon weakened pretty far. So I feel like we're doing really well so far. We just have to keep up the momentum. So here with Cresselia, I decided to go ahead and go for a substitute, thinking he wouldn't have anything to break it, and I would have quite a bit of bulk, and if he had decided to switch, I would have gotten a free Thunder Wave on something like the Mega Blaziken. But he decides to go ahead and throw up a Wish here. I know I can't prevent him from getting health back, but I can do some damage to him with the Moonblast. And I do actually get the special attack drop. It doesn't matter though, because he's just going to roar me out. And it actually brings in my Scizor. So here I get another free attack off, whether it be a U-turn or a knockoff. I decided to go ahead and go for the U-turn, so I wouldn't get an attack drop from Scald. I did risk it on my Zeraora, but I thought it was a risk I was willing to take because it can still do decent damage with Volt Switch. And right here, I thought he might predict me to double again, so I went ahead and hit him with the Plasma Fist, and it did a huge amount to that Muck. So here, I went ahead and switched into Tyranitar. I knew he couldn't do much to it, and he decided to go for a knockoff. I will pause here. That's kind of the reason I had Rocky Helmet, was so I could get some extra chip damage on this Muck. Muck's only real recovery would be Black Sludge or a Super Berry with Gluttony. So I thought I would just put Rocky Helmet on because it does help me deal with this Muck a little better, especially if I predict it to come in and switch out on Cresselia and I bring in my Tyranitar, then that definitely helps a lot. So here, Earthquake's a pretty free play because he doesn't have any immunities, and he decides to bring in his Donphan, but I decided to go for a Stealth Rock. making him think I might attack, because that is important. I went for the crunch here. It depended on its investment. It probably wouldn't have ever knocked out, but he just decides to rapid spin, which honestly makes me kind of sad that my Rocky Helmet got knocked off, because that would have killed him. But I decided to go ahead and knock him out here with an Earthquake, in case he decided to switch into something expecting me to try to get my Stealth Rocks back up. And here he decides to bring in the threat, Mega Blaziken. And I thought he might try to set up here, so I actually stayed in on a Mega Blaziken with a Tyranitar. He did like 400% if he had went for low kick, but I decided to go ahead and knock out the substitute. Switch into Cresselia. I know I can take any 2 moves. Even if he goes for Flare Blitz, Adamant, I have a chance to live, and he does a ton of damage to himself. So here he decides to switch into the Muck. I go for the Moonblast, get a small chunk of damage off. I'm kind of glad he didn't bring something like a substitute Muck. That would have been pretty crazy. But I went ahead and switched, thinking he probably wouldn't try to Pursuit this time. And he made a great double switch, going straight back into the Blaziken, threatening my Tyranitar. And I expected him to expect me to try to stay in that time, since I didn't last time. And look at that. Zeraora is not even a heavy Pokemon, and it still took a full 50% from that Blaziken's low kick. Mega Blaziken is ridiculous. But here I'm hoping to catch him off guard, because I am Scarfed. I guaranteed outspeed him, even though he's at +1. And so I'm hoping a Plasma Fist would be able to knock him out. And you're about to see that the strategy didn't work. He switched out into Tapu Koko, but on the bright side, he sets up the Electric Surge for me. Resisted Plasma Fist from an Adamant Zeraora does almost 50%. Sand chunks him down, and I decided to go ahead, go for the roll, and we get it. We knock out the Tapu Koko with our Zeraora. And here, he's kind of in a bad situation. He could bring in the Necrozma to tank the rest of the hits, but oddly enough, he goes into his Muck, and because the Electric Terrain's still up, boom, one-shots it. Zeraora is a monster. And here, he kind of gave up. I'm not really sure what happened. He still had a chance to win. All he had to do was bring in the Necrozma, but maybe he had done something wrong on his calcs, or he had a more offensive Necrozma, and thought that maybe it wouldn't be able to take an electric attack. So he sacks the Blaziken, switches and sacks the Vaporeon, I assume to try to preserve some health on his Necrozma, because the Electric Terrain does end here, so he would take less damage. I do the calc, see that there's absolutely no way I could ever one-shot him. I may not even two-shot him at that point, depending on his investment. So I decided to go ahead and bring in Tyranitar to finish the game and to preserve differential. So the end of this game is just him trying to flinch me out. Once I notice that and I see that he'll have a healing move next turn, I decided to go ahead and Thunder Wave him, just so he wouldn't be able to flinch me, because that would be in a really annoying game if he got a few flinches in a row. So I go ahead, hit the Paralysis, slow him down, and then the next crunch we'll beat him. We do win 6-0, and sadly, Munchlax didn't even get to see the field. So overall, I'm really happy about how I played in this game. I feel like a lot of those early switches and pivots really gained a lot of momentum, and even though he did have some good switches on his own, it was that powerful Zeraora's Plasma Fist, which is absolutely crazy. So if you did enjoy, I can upload some of the other battles I've had in this league so far. I don't think any of the other battlers upload, but I do think some of them are worth documenting, because it's so funny to see mons like Zeraora and Munchlax on a team together, along with Mega Salamence. Like, it's just such a ridiculously fun team to use in a league. But anyway, thanks for watching. See you in the next one.